So these activities are meant to, at first, provide experiences for the child before the child's capable of giving a response, but then as the child matures, the goal is to try to start evoking responses from the child so that we can have the maximum effect of growing neural fiber with these activities. Of all the songs and rhymes that the elderly people knew, the ones that were bouncing babies on their knees were the ones that they seemed to know the most. I got more songs and rhymes in this category than any of the other categories. Just as Jane Healy suggested in her book, we should try to work toward evoking responses from the child. From the very youngest child, you can start with the baby's head being supported on your lap, and as the baby gets older and can support his head, you can move to having the child sit up like this. And then, to evoke the child's response from the child, the baby starts to do this motion by him or herself, and you can follow along with the baby while he's bouncing. Let's go back to the first position. The day the baby's born, the head can be supported on your knees, and you could just lift your heels like this while saying a rhyme. Ride a cock horse to Banbury Cross to see a kind lady upon a white horse. Rings on her fingers and bells on her toes. She shall have music wherever she goes. The parent should make good eye contact with the baby. The baby's interested in your lips and your tongue and the rhyme. They're not necessarily understanding any of the words you're saying, but baby's understanding the familiarity of it and can hear in the tone of your voice that you love the baby. So there's communication going on. In that bounce I was just bouncing, you may notice that the rhyme was moving in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's pretty interesting that half of these rhymes move in 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and half of them move in 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So when I'm sharing these songs and rhymes with parents, I try to balance in a class that sometimes I do some that move 1, 2, 1, 2, and some that move 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So the child gets comfort in both of those feelings. There was some interesting research that was done recently where a group of children were only provided with rhymes that went 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and another group of children were only provided with rhymes that went 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the children that had been exposed to just the ones that went 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2 responded most favorably to other rhymes that went 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. They smiled, they turned their head, and they didn't respond to the ones that went 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And vice versa. The children that had been exposed to 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 responded more favorably to other songs that went 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Well, I want children to respond well to both. So right from the beginning, we'll do both. So if I did a ride a cock horse in one of my classes, then the next thing I should do should go 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Ride-o, 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 upon your horse astride-o, which way shall we ride-o, to the countryside-o, to find a pretty bride-o. So sometimes when the 80-year-olds remembered these songs and rhymes, sometimes they were spoken and sometimes they were sung. Sometimes they moved 1, 2, 1, 2. Sometimes they moved 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And in all of them, there was this make-believe, riding a horse. Ride-o, 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 or ride a cock horse to Banbury Cross. So the make-believe, the literature was ideal for children. Once they're older and they can support their head, then they can sit up like this as they're doing it. Again, make eye contact with the baby. Sometimes in my classes, while I'm demonstrating for the parents about something they may do with their child, I turn the teddy bear around this way, and then they all turn their children facing me. And I say, no, I would like you to face your child because there's a lot of expression in your voice, a lot of below-the-surface art that they can get by looking into your eyes and down into your soul. So look at your child while the baby's head now is able to be supported, and you can do more rhymes that are like this. Of all the different kinds of things you can do, here's another one where the baby could straddle your leg like this. Leg over leg as the dog went to Dover. When he got there, whoops, he went over. And then the baby's first words are, again. Ride a cock horse, and so on. One of my favorite ones is where you see me in that one picture on my back with the child laying across my legs. So the child is up like this while I'm lifting my legs up and down. Our children love that one, I think, more than any other way of playing these bouncing games, which you have to be careful because they can drool in your mouth. To evoke the response, the most effective way would be to sit on the floor because you want the baby's feet to touch the floor over and over again. So in our classes, when we're sitting on the floor like this, my Teddy is sitting here, and I tell the parents, have the child sitting so you're kind of looking at the child, but let the child's feet touch the floor again and again as you're doing this. So as the child's playing some game, from Wibbleton to Wobbleton is 15 miles, from Wobbleton to Wibbleton is 15 miles, from Wibbleton to Wobbleton, from Wobbleton to Wibbleton, from Wibbleton to Wobbleton is 15 miles. When the child is a little older, they'll start using my knee as a springboard, and you see them pull their weight down again and again on my knee. So if this child was pulling his or her weight on my knee like this, I would be sure to say the rhyme following the child's tempo. From Wibbleton to Wobbleton is 15 miles. If the child wants to bounce faster, then I'm going to say from Wibbleton to Wobbleton is 15 miles from Wobbleton to Wibbleton. What's important is that I'm matching the child's beat. Even at this age, a child will keep a fairly steady beat if you let the child show you what speed they want to keep it. When we see children in kindergarten that don't keep such a good beat, sometimes it's that you're asking from them a tempo that might not be appropriate for them. So at this age, I'm helping the child hear and feel. As Phyllis said, at this age, children have to feel the beat for them to develop. When they were infants, they could feel the beat by my providing it for them, or when they're a little older, by my providing it for them. But then I want to get to the point where they're actually providing the beat, evoking the response from them, and I say the rhyme to support it. So the bouncing songs and rhymes were the most common ones, and sometimes it's a good idea to try some toys with them. One of our favorite gifts to give someone who has just had a baby at a baby shower or baby shower before they've had their baby is one of these Johnny jump-ups. They attach on a door frame and there's a spring and you adjust them so the baby's feet just touch the floor and they hang in this little seat like this. Now they can be 6, 7 months old and be in this Johnny jump-up, and the baby, like before on the bounces, pulls their weight down, and as they're bouncing along, you can say one of these song or rhymes that we talked about. Ride-o, ride-o, ride-o. If the baby stops, you stop saying the song, and when the baby starts again, continue the song. Which way shall we ride-o to the country? Side-o to find a pretty bride-o. And the baby doesn't understand your language much at 6 or 7, but gets the biggest smile when you're doing this kind of activity. There's this great communication between you and baby. Baby goes, ha, I get it. Ha, ha, ha. I stop, and the sound stops. Hey, am I powerful or what? This is fabulous. So this is a great little, I do the Johnny Jump Up in my little book of bounces, because if the parent doesn't know many songs and rhymes, and these songs and rhymes are all about bouncing, and there's baby bouncing. Here's a clip of Noah in the Johnny Jump Up. His mom's going to accompany him with the saxophone. Isn't this a great example of a parent connecting with their child through music? Another thing that was really useful was, in this last picture, a rocking horse. Now, our son Andrew, when he was about 1 year old, was old enough to sit on the rocking horse. I'd wait until the baby's older to do the rocking horse in the Johnny Jump Up. And he would rock back and forth, and we would sing some song along with him. And then he would stop abruptly and see if he would trick me and start again. So he was smart enough to know that he was starting and stopping the song. At 1 year old, he didn't speak yet, but he understood the game. In fact, he turns out to be quite a musical person, and when he would start and stop, he would start and stop at different tempos to see if he could fool me to say the rhyme faster or slower. So he would go, ride-o, 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 up, huh? And he'd look at me and laugh. Which way shall we ride-o to the countryside? Oh, to find a pretty bride. Oh, and he would laugh. He thought that was the funniest thing. So he had the sense of how what he heard and what he felt fit together, and that's the point, evoking the response from the baby through these kinds of games. Another activity that was found were these things called wiggles. And now most people know one of these, and it's probably the one you know. This little piggy went to market, and this little piggy stayed home. But what I was surprised to learn is how many of these people that were over 80 knew. There were dozens of them. Also, in my classes, when I'm teaching this kind of activity to the parents, they tend to go, this little piggy went to market, this little piggy stayed home, which is a perfectly fine way of playing the game. But for musical purposes, I ask the parents to do it on a pulse. So I'll say, beat, beat. This little piggy went to market. And this little piggy stayed home, because I'm interested in the baby feeling the beat while we're doing it. Now, in the youngest children, you're not going to do it on their hands at all, because when you go, did you ever try to play with the baby's hands when they're a month old? This little piggy went to market. This little piggy stayed home. So you don't use their hands, you use their feet, and that's ideal. There's, all this infant stimulation, that stuff that should be happening when the baby's first born. They do the APGAR test on the baby to find out how his senses or how his nerves are developed at birth. And, they stroke the bottom of the baby's foot to see if it tickles, and they get a ticklish reaction from the baby. And I wonder sometimes if maybe these songs and rhymes that were done with babies had a purpose, if they weren't just for that reason, that they were playful, but they also were stimulating the baby's foot and were massaging the baby through these games. I wonder. So the newborn baby, so the day they're born, you can play with their toes. And so you wiggle their big toe. This little piggy went to market, and this little piggy stayed home. So it's possible to do it from the day the baby's born. Later on, when they're more relaxed and their hands open up, then you can play on their hands, wiggling their fingers and thumbs. And finally, how do you evoke the response? By the time they're 1 year old, if you've been playing these games with them, you offer your hand to the baby, and the baby will start shaking your thumb, and you say, this little piggy went to market, and you wait. And this little piggy stayed home. And the child starts to understand the sense of and the sequence of these words and this feeling of the pulse. And then you're saying it according to how fast or slow. But again, I was surprised to learn how many different ones the people over 80 knew. This little pig danced a merry, merry jig, and this little pig ate candy. This little pig wore a blue and yellow wig, and this little pig was a dandy. But this little pig never grew to be big, so they called him Tiny Little Andy. And there's some history sometimes to these rhymes. Evidently, the farmers, when they have a litter of piggies and there's a runt in the litter, he's called the Andy. And I think that's probably what he's all about. Oh, I had an Andy. Wilma, look at there's an Andy in this rhyme. This little wind blows silver rain. This little wind drifts snow. This little wind sings a whistled tune. This little wind moans low. But this little wind rocks baby birds tenderly to and fro. This is the father, short and stout. This is the mother with children about. This is the brother, tall, you see. This is the sister with doll on her knee. This is the baby sure to grow. And here is the family all in a row. This little cow eats grass, and this little cow eats hay. And this little cow drinks water, and this little cow runs away. But this little cow does nothing, but just lies down all day. We'll chase her, we'll chase her, we'll chase her away. So there's a little tickle thing that goes at the end of that. Anyway, in all of them, do you notice there's make-believe again? We're back to this good quality literature that has sense of wonder and make-believe in it. They're cows, they're pigs, they're families. And there's so many different ones, and most of today's parents, they only know that one. This little piggy went to market, and this little piggy stayed home. But this idea of playing with babies' fingers and toes must have been much more prevalent 100 years ago, or I wouldn't gather 50 different ones from people. So it's another excellent way of putting the beat into the child. Another category of activities that we found were things called tickles. And this last thing we just did had a little bit of that, where you walked around in the baby's palm of the hand, round and round the garden like a teddy bear. 1 step, 2 step, tickle 'em under there is probably the most well-known of these. But the first day the baby's born, you're not going to be able to play in the baby's palm, are you? So these rhymes were sort of adapted. Some of the people showed me tapping the beat on a baby's tummy by going around in a circle. A little flea went walking to see what he could see, and all that he could see was Sebastian's little tummy. The bee went to the barn with bagpipes under his arm and said, bzzz. So these were little games about a bee and so on, and then this little tickle at the end. So the day the baby's born, you can be playing these kinds of tickles on the baby's tummy. But as they get older and more comfortable opening up their hand, then you can play by drawing a circle around in their hand and walking up their arm. Round and round the lighthouse, up a spiral stair. Where can we find one? Right in there. Round and round the haystack, looking for a hare. Where can we find one? Right up there. Slowly, slowly, very slowly, creeps the garden snail. Slowly, slowly, very slowly, up the wooden rail. But quickly, quickly, very quickly runs the little mouse. Quickly, quickly, very quickly in her little house. And so there's a little game like that. So these could be done with their little babies on their tummy. When they're a little older, played in their hand, tapping the beat as you walk up their arm. And finally, evoking the response, you offer your hand to the child. James, our youngest son, used to love to do these, and he would walk his finger around my hand, round and round the garden like a teddy bear, and then he'd walk up my arm. 1 step, 2-step, tickle him under there. And I'd always have to laugh, pretending, because I'm not ticklish. And his favorite word, again. Yeah. Okay, one more time. Round and round the garden. It was great. So tickles were another commonly known song or rhyme that these elderly people knew. And tapping. Tapping happened in a number of different places, but as you heard in the recording of Margarita Ashbrook, she shared one that was tapping on the bottom of the baby's foot. And relevant to certainly 100 years ago, putting horseshoes on horses. Although that's not so not relevant today. We still have horses and we still put horseshoes on horses. So tapping on the bottom of the baby's foot, many of these rhymes are about putting horseshoes on. Pitty patty polt, shoe a little colt, here a nail, there a nail, pitty patty polt. Robert Barnes, fellow fine, can you shoe this horse of mine? Yes, good sir, that I can as well as any other man. Here's a nail, there's a prod. Now, good sir, your horse is shod. Some interesting vocabulary in that one. Sometimes it's about visiting a shoemaker and going down to get your shoe fixed by the shoemaker. There's a cobbler down the street mending shoes for little feet with a bang and a bang and a bang, 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 with a bang and a bang and a bang, bang, bang. Mending shoes the whole day long, mending shoes to make them strong with a bang and a bang and a bang, 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 with a bang and a bang and a bang, bang, bang. Cobbler, cobbler, mend my shoe, have it done by 2:30, tooraloo, raloo. 2:30 is much too late, have it done by 8:30, tooraloo, raloo. All right, so it's the day the baby's born. The baby's laying on your lap. You can certainly be playing with the baby's feet. And as the baby's a little older and can sit up, then you would reach around and tap on the bottom of the baby's foot. And guess how you would finally evoke the response from the child by the time they're 1? Yes, you offer your foot and you say, tap on my foot. Or you could ask the child, like in the slide, to tap on his own foot or her own foot. The main thing here is whatever tempo the child moves, that you support it by singing the song or chanting the rhyme at the speed the child is moving. So there's a good connection between what they hear and what they feel. Some of this tapping is done on the face of the baby. I wouldn't do this with children that are too young. Their field of vision's about this far. If you want to play a face tapping game on a baby, as soon as you touch the baby's face, he goes. So probably you wouldn't do the face tapping games with the babies the first couple of months of life. But a little ways later, there are a bunch of games where you tap on a baby's face. Here sits the Lord Mayor, here sit the men. Here sits the rooster, and here sits the hen. Here sit the chickens, and here they run in. Chin chopper, chin chopper, chin chopper, chin. So again, the make-believe of this barnyard family friends are on the baby's face. Sometimes you did it by tapping on the whole baby's body. I learned this in Philadelphia from a woman who was from Mississippi. So who knows where this song came from. It's a scale, so it's probably not a folk song. Folk songs aren't usually organized around a scale. But you can see why it's a scale by the nature of the song going from the baby's foot up to their head and then back down. On my toe there is a flea, now he's climbing up on me, past my tummy, past my nose, on my head where my hair grows. Grew. On my head there is a flea, now he's climbing down on me, past my tummy, past my knee, on my toe. Take that, you flea! So it's a cute little tickle at the end. Actually, the way the lady showed it to me, she says, on my toe, take that, you flea! So tapping is a great way to have songs and rhymes and evoke the response from the child by asking the child to tap on his or her foot or tapping on your foot. Clapping. I got less clapping songs and rhymes than any of the other categories. And it wasn't that people did less clapping. Everybody used patty cake. So you would ask somebody, did you play a game with a song or rhyme in your lap? They'd say, oh, like patty cake? And you'd say, yes. So patty cake obviously was the most popular clapping kind of song or game that people did. But there were others. And when they're just newborn babies, 1 day old, you certainly can grab their hands and tap their little hands together, saying patty cake, baker's man. Some other more well-known ones, peas porridge hot, peas porridge cold, peas porridge in the pot, 9 days old. Some like it hot, some like it cold. Some like it in the pot, 9 days old. My mammy likes it hot. My pappy likes it cold, but I like it in the pot, 9 days old. So clapping their hands together. Another one, when they're a little older, I would suggest that you not hold on to their hands anymore. Instead, we tell the parents to put their hands underneath the children's hands so they tap up onto their hands like this. So you might say, hot cross buns, 1 a penny, 2 a penny, hot cross buns. This leads to a natural evoking the movement from the child. Again, like the child would bounce later on my knee under his own fruition. Now the child is likely to tap on my own hand.
we tell the parents when we're teaching classes that let's take a song like Pat a Cake and tap up on their hand for a few lessons. Pat a cake, baker's man. And then one day you say, parents, this week at home, put your hand under the baby like you always have done, but don't move your hand, just start saying the rhyme. Pat a cake, baker's man. Baby will turn, can't speak yet, turn and look at you, and you know what they're thinking. Hey, stupid, you're forgetting to tap on my hand. Since baby can't say that, baby has another way of communicating to you. Baby goes, which means, hey, stupid, hit my hand. So we go, pat a cake, baker's man, bake me a cake as fast as you. Now, baby will hit a few times fast and then stop, and then I stop saying the rhyme. I get another look. Oh, great. Before you weren't tapping my hand, and now you're not saying the rhyme. Come on, let's go. And baby says that by going some more. So baby gets the idea. This is what the whole sequence looks like. Pat a cake, baker's man, bake me a cake as fast as you can. Roll it in, pat it in. Mark it with B and put it in the oven for baby and me. Pat a cake, baker's man. And by now, baby's laughing again because baby gets it. Oh, I see. You will say the rhyme if I tap my hand. I get it. And make sure you do it the speed that they're doing it, whatever the speed that baby is. Now, it's interesting. So this is an observation that we've made in classes because we naturally would have held the baby's hands at a younger age. Pat a cake, baker's man. Parents naturally tap up on the baby's hand at that speed also. Pat a cake, baker's man. But we've never seen a child tap back on us at that speed. No child goes, pat a cake, baker's man. All of them go, pat a cake, baker's man. And we've learned a lot from the research recently that tells us that children prefer to move on the beat, metronome marking 120 to 136. And this is one of the first times we actually see it in 1-year-olds. 1-year-olds will tap about 120 to 136 when they tap back, the speed that's comfortable for them. This is too much time in between the taps. So they tap about like this. So now in classes, I tell the parents, let's try tapping at that speed. Pat a cake, baker's man. Although it doesn't really seem to have made much difference. If we tapped pat a cake, baker's man, the children still go pat a cake, baker's man twice as fast. All right, so when they're little teeny babies, you can hold on to their hands the day they're born and clap their hands. But by the time they're old enough to be coordinated, 6, 7 months old, I would stop holding onto their hands and start tapping up on their hands instead. And then to evoke the response, just use a familiar song or rhyme, don't move your hand, and see if the child then supplies tapping onto your hand. And from then on, it becomes a game. You tap on my hands, and I'll say a song or rhyme for you. Guess which one I have today. As I said, there weren't a whole lot of these songs and rhymes remembered by the elderly people. They all did clapping games, but there were only a few that everybody seemed to know. There were some in England that I didn't know. They were interesting. Here's a clapping song from England. Clap hands till daddy comes home with buns in his pocket for baby alone. Buns in his pocket. Here, kid, some squishy buns for you. Actually, the pocket would be a pouch on the back. So clap hands till daddy comes home with buns in his pocket for baby alone. Second verse is interesting, little sexist. Clap hands till daddy comes home because daddy has money and mama has none. But it tells about the time who was the money winner or the money earner was the dad, and mom stayed home and worked twice as hard. Right? In addition to playing games where you tap up on the baby's hand and have the baby tap back on your hand, when the baby's a little older, you can ask the baby to clap his or her own hands. This would be a slightly older child, probably closer to age 2, that would be able to clap their hands. The last category of songs and rhymes that we gathered were lullabies. And as you can imagine, these people that were over 80 were probably first and second generation people from other countries. And so the different languages that we heard people sing in was fabulous. And we would record them and do the best we could to transcribe them into the kind of syllables that they sounded like to us. And then we sent all these songs off to a company in Chicago that specializes in translating in various languages. And that company was responsible for putting down the correct spellings and the correct pronunciations for the songs and rhymes. Once in a while, we would get a phone call from one of those people saying, gee, my grandmother used to sing that song or rhyme, and she sang it a little bit differently. And then I would listen to them sing the song. I said, well, let's use your version. That's a great way to sing the song. So the lullabies were interesting. Another interesting thing about lullabies is that they also were sometimes in 2 and sometimes in 3 just like the bounces. And babies that were sung lullabies had the best of all possible worlds. I think in musical development, lullabies have everything. They're tuneful, beatful, and artful. They're tuneful because there's a tune. They're beatful because you're tapping gently the beat on the baby's back. In fact, it's more than just beat. They're feeling meter because you would shift back and forth, 2 taps for each shift, or 3 taps for each shift if it was in 3. So the baby's not just learning a bunch of beats, but it's learning how beats are grouped in 2s and 3s. And artful, because there's nothing more expressive than a lullaby. When you're singing a lullaby to a baby, you're having the deepest feeling of love and calm. You want the baby to be calm. You want the baby to feel secure and loved. And it comes through in the lullaby. Hush-a-bye, don't you cry. Go to sleep, little baby. It's such a beautiful tune. And the child's feeling the beat, hearing the tune, and knowing how much I love them. Ally bally bee, sittin' on my daddy's knee, wantin' for a wee penny to buy some Coulter's candy. Some of these songs were in interesting modes as well. Little red bird of the lonely gore, lonely gore, lonely gore. Little red bird of the lonely gore, oh, where did you sleep in the night? This is some pretty modal kind of singing as well. Great for the child to experience those other colors that the music can sound like. In 3, Mother, how pretty the moon is tonight. 'Twas never so pretty before. Its 2 little horns are so sharp and so bright. I hope they don't grow anymore. So a song in 3s. So here's the baby. You know, I don't know if you know, when this is what we experience with our children, the babies would never fall asleep while we were singing the songs to them. I think because they were interested in the words. You know, you'd be singing, and you did that trick where there'd be a mirror over here on the wall, and you kind of look like this in the mirror to see if their eyes were still open. Oh, their eyes are still open. Sing some more. Tap some more. And you'd walk over checking on, no, their eyes are still open. Our children sort of knew when you were standing and when you were sitting, you'd be getting tired, and you'd just sort of like tapping, and you'd go like this, and they'd go, wah! And you go, oh, that's mine. But we did find if you hum, that's when the child closes their eyes. So, and then you could lay them down. In the classes, I always put the lullabies at the end of the lesson because sometimes the babies fall asleep. We're doing the lullabies and we end by humming them one last time, and then we look around and 2 of them are asleep. It's been a rigorous half hour, you know, we wore them out. So we put them at the end, and the mothers just gather up their moms and dads, gather up their babies and take them away. So the lullabies, I think if there was one thing that's most important at this age, one kind of song, it would be the lullaby. Because the lullaby is tuneful, beatful, and artful. If we could just teach all of these children these songs and rhymes when they became 30 years old and had their own babies and they knew lullabies, we would be realizing Kodai's idea that the babies would be born into homes where moms and dads could sing lullabies to them. If babies were sung lullabies, all of them would develop into tuneful, beatful, and artful adults. So lullabies are the most important. Well, these things that we've talked about so far, bounces, wiggles, tickles, tapping, clapping, and lullabies, they're all important for putting the pulse on the child so the child can feel the beat, as Phyllis Weichert told us earlier in the lecture. But there were 2 other things that I add to a half-hour class. I add some songs that are just very simple songs. Most of these are folk songs, and I use songs that end on do, the mi, re, do songs, because they're grounded in resting tone. There are some simple songs that use so, mi, la, so, mi, but they sort of are floating out here without the stability of resting tone. So I'll use some of those songs, but mostly I want the songs that are grounded in resting tone because that's our culture. Western music is grounded in resting tone. More about that later. These simple songs are intended to be learned by infants just by assimilation. I want to provide some songs that are simple enough so that when the baby does begin singing, there are some songs in the baby's memory that the baby will be able to be successful with. I wouldn't think that we would want to only do simple songs with the baby. That would be like saying, we're only going to say simple words until you can say those simple words. Mama, 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 mama. And when the baby goes, you didn't go, oh my God, a non-speaker. You said the baby has to evolve through mama. And while the baby might use mama as the first word, mama is not the only word the baby heard. The baby heard all the language. In fact, the more language, the better to grow neural fiber that processes language. If you have a limited vocabulary, you'll grow a limited neural fiber that processes language. So it's important that the children hear the spectrum of music as well. And that happens naturally as the songs I've shared with you already in this lecture, you can hear they're quite diverse. There's 2/4 and 6/8, modal and major and minor, and they're not just simple songs. But there should be also some songs that are simple enough that when the child begins singing, they can have some success, like a simple word, mama, is simple enough that the baby can say it early on. So in this part of the lesson, I'll bring in 1 or 2 songs that are very simple, short, easy to use your singing voice to do. Hot cross buns, 1 a penny, 2 a penny, hot cross buns. Hop old squirrel, idle-dum, hop old squirrel, idle-dum, dee. Hop old squirrel, idle-dum, hop old squirrel, idle-dum, dee. Frog in the meadow, can't get him out. Take a little stick and stir him about. So some of these very simple little short songs. We'll sing them just over and over again, maybe while rocking the baby back and forth. The idea again is to plant the seed. In the infant classes, the children that are still very young, they're just hearing these songs. They're obviously not verbal. In the toddler classes, those are children that can now stand up. Those children aren't really very verbal yet either, but toward the end of maybe 2 years, middle of 2 years old or end of 2 years old, some of those children are starting to be verbal, and they will begin to attempt some of these songs if they've heard them. I'm going to bring these songs back again in the 3 and 4-year-old classes. By then, the children are easily able to learn these songs. If they've been in these infant and toddler classes, they've heard them enough that they already know them, and it's easy for them. If they haven't been in these classes, the 3 and 4-year-olds have to be taught these songs at 3 and 4. Also in these classes, I'm going to be doing some simple circle games. It occurred to me that in the half hour of play, where the parents bring their children and I'm teaching the parents how to play games with their children, there wasn't much community happening. It was all parent-child activities. And I wanted to do at least one thing where we got up as a group and we shared a game. So bringing in some of the very, very simple circle games in the toddler classes. I haven't made this clear yet. How do you know whether the child belongs in an infant class or a toddler class? Well, in my classes, you stay in the infant class until you graduate when you can stand up. If you can stand up, you graduate to the toddler classes. And in the toddler classes, we add some of these little simple circle games. In the toddler classes, the circle games mostly will shuffle around in a circle, and something happens at the end. We either fall down, or parent will pick up the baby and set them back down. Later on, again, these circle games will be played by children without their parents. But for right now, we've adapted the circle games so that they can be a community where we all can be in a circle. One thing that we don't do at this age is hold hands in a circle this way, where there's parent-child side by side. Because if you look at the poor children that are 2 years old going around the circle, they're going around the circle like this. Someone's dragging them around. It's not so much fun. And you know, when you're in a circle holding hands like this, which way are your toes pointed? They're pointed into the center of the circle. And when a little child starts walking, they want to walk this way. To expect them to be able to do this is an unnatural feeling. As you start walking, the child wants to get comfortable, and they'll turn this way. And if people walk and turn, the circle collapses. You've probably had that experience. So the best thing to do is to get in a circle and then not hold hands and turn this way. Do the follow the leader idea. Now which way are your toes pointed? Now you can walk the way that you're going, and you physically feel comfortable moving in this direction. So as we're playing some of these games, maybe the parent is behind the child. If they're just beginning walking, the parent might be helping the child this way from behind. If they're a little older, they can walk side by side holding their child's hand this way as they walk around the circle. But in both cases, the child's toes are pointed the way that they would be walking. As I mentioned, some of these have a surprise ending. That's the artistic, expressive moment in it, this big surprise ending. You know, like, ring around the rosy, pocket full of posy, ashes, ashes, we all fall down. And help them sit down carefully so there's no harm. Some of these where you fall down at the end, they have this lovely little rhyme that you can say to get back up. I ask the parents to tap on the floor while they say the rhyme. And again, it's interesting to discover that the tapping is metronome marking 120 to 136, usually. penny on the water, penny on the sea. Up jumps a little fish and up jumps me. And then everybody stands back up and we can repeat the song again. The leaves are green, the nuts are brown, they hang so high we won't fall down. Leave them alone till frosty weather when they will all fall down together. The cows are in the meadow eating buttercups. A tissue, we all stand up. And we're back up again. Some of these have a little lift at the end. Alley-galoo-galoo, alley-galoo-galee, alley-galoo-galoo-galee, wee! And you have to know your child. You know, some children, they want to wee! And other children want wee! So, careful. Sally go round the sun, Sally go round the moon, Sally go round the chimney pot every afternoon. Boom! Sally go round the sun, Sally go round the moon, Sally go round the chimney pot every afternoon. Boom! So in the classes, I try to do a little community where we are, as a group, moving around in a circle together. Something else I might do in the circle time would be to use a ball and roll the ball back and forth while we sit on the floor in a circle. I wonder if I could ask you to come sit on the floor, Sally. In these games, sit right over in that corner. In these games, I'd be rolling the ball over to the child, and I'm going to roll the ball on the phrase of the song, like this. I roll the ball to Sally. She rolls it back to me. I roll the ball to Sally. She rolls it back to me. And maybe to the next child. Roll the ball, roll the ball. Roll the ball, roll the ball. I roll the ball to Sally. She rolls it back to me. These little ball rolling games teach the children about the phrase structure. The parents sometimes get a little impatient when the child doesn't roll the ball back right away. Don't roll it back. I roll the ball to Sally. And then the parents are kind of going, and then they push the ball out of the child's hand. And I say, I'm in no hurry, just wait. And the child knows that the song has stopped. Just like the child bouncing in the Johnny Jump Up or tapping on my hand notices the song has stopped. And I'll gesture like this, and sooner or later, the child rolls it back. She rolls it back to me. Another thing I noticed is I used to just roll the ball to one child and back, next child and back, next child and back. And the child noticed when they rolled it back, they didn't get it anymore. And then it wasn't so much fun, and they wanted to hold on to it because they knew if they rolled it back, that was the end of their turn. So now I always roll the ball 2, 3, or 4 times to the same child, so they're not afraid to roll it back. They know they're going to get to play again. On, roll on, my ball, roll on. 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 And then I would go to the next child. So that child had a couple of turns. Thank you. So the circle games might be walking around with the parents in a circle, or it might be rolling these balls back and forth. So we have circle games to add to the curriculum. In these classes, I think it's also important to include classical music. Most of the songs and rhymes have been folk songs and rhymes up to this point. And I could use other kinds of music, jazz or fiddle music or other kinds of folk music, but children might encounter those other kinds of musics, and I want to be sure that they hear classical music. And I'm choosing classical music that has the metronome marking 120 to 136, and also classical music that sometimes moves 1, 2, 1, 2, and sometimes moves 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it's a great chance to select classical musics for them. I also am going to pick something that's not too long, maybe 2 minutes long. That's just about long enough. Any longer than that, they get tired of doing that particular activity. I have a way to do this with infants, and I have a different way to do it with toddlers. Let's talk about how we do it with infants first. With the infants, I ask all the parents to put the baby on their shoulder, like in burping position. And all the children are in their parents' shoulder, and the parents are all standing in a circle. And I'll lead the parents through some activities while the classical music is playing. Start by tapping and rock back and forth. So here again, the baby's feeling neater. And then we'll walk around the room in a circle. Turn around and go the other way, parents. Okay, parents, take your babies and turn them around and bounce them like this. Now let's all walk into the center of the circle. And all the babies' faces get close together and they go, ooh! Let's walk backwards. Let's walk into the circle again. Woo! All right, let's lay them down sideways, parents. Swing, swings. Again, you know your child better than anybody. Some children like little swings, some like great big swings. All right, let's sit on the floor with our babies in our laps, and let's tap on their legs. And let's tap here, there, here, there, here, there. And let's bounce on our knees like this. This is hard on grown-up knees. And pick them back up, and we're going to tap on their backs one more time. And let's walk around the circle. And turn around and go back home. So it was a little piece of classical music, and the tempo was 120 to 136, and the child was feeling meter 2 while they were being exposed to music. Hopefully, the parents will remember doing this kind of activity. If they just have NPR and they go home, have the radio on, something comes up, they should pick up the baby and dance with the baby. You know, when I got married, I married into a family that had a large ethnic background. They were Syrians, and there was a lot of community, family stuff. And at those weddings, everybody picked up their baby and danced with their baby. And you just saw that right away the babies became part of the community early on. And I think we should be doing more of that, dancing with our babies. Now the toddler classes are a little bit different. The toddlers, remember, they can stand up. So in the classes, I've modified it now so that we do things while the toddlers are standing. In the beginning classes, it's kind of funny because I ask the parents to stand and put the children in front of them, watch what I do, and do whatever I do. And of course, I say, parents, please do everything I do. And the parents and I are doing this, you know, whatever we're doing. And the toddlers are all standing around going, especially if they were the infant class that used to being picked up at this point. As the weeks go along, the children start catching on. And you just reassure the parents that the children will participate in time. It's not important for them to participate right away. They need to see some stuff that we're doing. We need to model for them. And I've chosen movements that I've seen children do. So they were my teacher. By watching 2-year-olds respond to music, I've asked them to show me what they can do, and then I lead the class doing the things that those children were doing. So let's do some movements that parents and children would have done. Again, I'm going to be modeling for them, and I'm hopefully doing movements that I think even 2-year-olds can do. Start by bouncing from the knees. And then swing your arms. This might feel fast for you, but remember they have little arms. And let's start twisting back and forth. Twist, 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 twist. And now let's shake our hands. I call these butterflies. Let's take our butterflies down to the floor. And let's tap on the floor. Tap here, there, here, there. Take big rocks, reach for the sky, reach, 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 and let's get our butterflies going again. Let's tap on our legs. Here, there, here, there, here, there. And again, you can ask them to bounce. Hard on grown-up knees, piece of cake for the kids. I saw some kids the other day doing some stuff like this. At least they were on the beat. Let's take our butterflies and get back up. And take them here, there, here, there, and let's bounce from our knees.
claps their hands. So it's just long enough for it to be an enjoyable activity, running them through a variety of things, showing them, here are some things you might do when the music is on. And ask them if they can come up with some ideas for you as well. I always am learning something new like that one where they were just rocking back and forth. So including some classical music. All right, so here's what a half-hour lesson looks like. We'll do a couple of songs and rhymes that are bouncing songs and rhymes, one that might be 1, 2, 1, 2, and one that goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. A wiggle, which is wiggling the fingers or toes depending on the age of the child. A tickle, if it's a baby, on the tummy, older children in the hand. Tapping, either on the bottom of the baby's foot or if they're older, perhaps one of the rhymes on their face. Clapping, patty cake, you can hold their hands up to about 6 months, but after that it's better if you tap up on their hands. Simple songs, just so you plant the seeds of some songs that will be easy for them to sing when they're a little older. Simple circles, if they're old enough to stand up, so that we have a community experience where we can walk around in the circle and have that surprise ending where they fall down or jump up. Some movement with recorded music. I'm mostly using classical music for this. And then the last thing is a lullaby, ending with humming the lullaby. Sometimes they fall asleep, so it's a good thing to have it at the end.